Kim.
I know it's difficult to pronounce.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a Mr. Kim, another Mr. Kim.
Yeah.
Right. I've learned that.
So it was very interesting to learn about this citizen science, and I was just interested. Do you see in the foreseeable future that this combination between citizen and technology will shift? Because in the latest news we saw Internet of Things. Those sensors are poured out from you can just get it from Amazon everywhere, and we can just plug those sensors into the nature, and a lot of this work will be we can just delegate it to the census. So do you see decreased role in the citizen in the future, or even more increase in the roles?
I think it will increase in the use of technology with sensors, as you said. I mean, everything now, even when you just upgrade your iPhone, the location data sensing is better. I mean, it hasn't got actual sensing probes to collect the pH of water and stuff, but there's lots of little devices that you can get that link onto other devices. So and many citizen scientists are designing those kinds of little devices for automatic sensing. So one of the issues will be, it may be easier in many instances to collect the data because of technology. Maybe the tricky thing will be how you store that data, how you analyze that data, how you visualize that data. I mean, the whole, big data issue in science, I think in general with genomics and in citizen science is huge. So how you store the data, how you manipulate it, how you share it, and then how you help people to actually make sense of it. And my husband works a lot in visualization, and I'm always very surprised that actually people working in big data are very algorithmically oriented, but actually for most of us, we work better by seeing visualizations. I mean, probably not some of you are just ace students at algorithmic stuff and database stuff and all of those. But, for many of us, pictures really help us. So I think there's a whole set of work. So that's one part of it. And I think another part of it is the relationship between citizens and scientists. And some of my colleagues, Andrea Wiggins, you saw one of her slides, she works much more on, the actual data and data quality and that relationship between the two. I actually am much more of a kind of education and advocacy kind of thing. I mean, my real passion is if I can get you all going out and getting interested in this stuff, and if you continue to be interested in it, and if then, at some point you have kids and you take them out, and we all help to, that's what so I'm kind of on the edge of being like in the science bit of it to being in the science education part of it. And so we have a big project that when Sam mentioned I'll stop being dean, we will work with a very poor area in Washington, D.C. with a lot of new immigrants and a lot of poorer people where the water quality in this particular area it's getting better, but it's really poor. And people get rashes when they canoe there and they get the water on their skin sometimes. There's all kinds of plastic and stuff floating in it after there's rain in the streets. People fish there, and there's a big concern that they're actually eating the fish, which is awful. So we'll try and work with people there to what one of my colleagues in education calls scientizing the problem. So getting people who not talking to them as, you need to learn this scientific term and that scientific term, but to actually get them to work in their natural environment using a description that fits with the way they want to describe it. So, bringing it into the community. So that's what I'm going to be doing for 4 years. It's great. With a nice NSF project for doing that. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a lady further back as well, but
Yeah, lady first.
Okay,
Lady first.
lady first.
It's like a suggestion question combined with why don't you apply regarding the crowdsourcing
Yeah.
motivation for citizens? Why don't you apply the explore form of competition? Competition is indeed a
Yeah.
motivation for
Yeah, yeah.
kind of common, like people care about the number of likes on Facebook.
I know.
Why don't you guys apply that to
Yeah.
like nurture that?
Yeah, and we're going to. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, and we're going to. We just haven't, and in fact, some of the revised, the picture of the tabletop that I showed you is about 5 months old now, 6 months old. I've got some more recent ones, but they've disappeared with. You know, when your professors tell you to back up your talks and back up your data, listen to them. I should have done that. And I grabbed this from the cloud, but I hadn't backed up my most recent stuff. I mean, anyway, but yes, we're doing that. So I think it's very powerful in the crowdsourcing. So, you know, with the ideas that we had from the other app, numbers of likes, badges, those kinds of things. So yes, we're looking at some of those things. So that's a great idea. So thank you.
Thank you for the lecture. I have a question about the getting motivation. You said during the slide there was the getting initial motivate and the long-term motivate. At the long-term motivate, there was the membership program that gets the people belongs to the example internet. But for the getting initial motivation, the membership program could be decrease the initial motivation. That was my question.
Yeah, it could. That particular study that doctoral student did, she finished it 2 years ago, so she started it 4 years ago. And so it was very foundational, and we're building on that. So that was very, trying to understand from what already exists, what motivates people. So we learned a lot from her initial study and from others. There's now more people have done that, but that was one of the really one of the first ones. The membership thing of identifying with a community is actually very strong. We haven't tested that out for initial motivation, but we could, grabbing different groups on Facebook and saying, hey, why don't you try the citizen science thing and bring your friends along? We haven't actually done that, but we could. But the initial motivation for most people is, I'm interested in birds, or I'm interested in climate change, or I'm interested in fish, so a lot of people bring that initial motivation. And birders, by the way, are huge. Is anybody here a birder? Great, me too. Have you seen the eBird stuff from Cornell University? The Lab of Ornithology at Cornell University, if you just type in, again, Google it, just type eBird, you will find they have been collecting data for a very long time. They have amazing visualizations of migrations, and you can, type in descriptions of things and get help with identification. I mean, I use an app on my phone. Sorry, got distracted there. But yeah, the sense of being in community is also something that we want to build on, and that's why we're developing the website actually, so that it keeps the long-term community, so that you're not just in the nature park for a week and then you go off and that's kind of the end of it. You can reconnect with the naturalists, and you can see what people have said about your data, and you can comment about other people's data and stuff. And you might be right that we should actually be trying to pull more people in from Facebook and other groups. And there are communities on Flickr, Pinterest, places like that who specialize in particular kinds of photographs that are being used in the Encyclopedia of Life. We just haven't got around to doing that yet. But that's a good idea.
I asked this question because
I downloaded the NatureNet app
Yeah.
application. But I start doing it after I saw the signing in the stuff on
Right.
my personal stuff.
Yeah, so signing in
yeah.
puts people off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
why I
agree.
asked you this
Yeah,
question. How
I
do you
agree.
get presents?
I don't know how we do that and keep track of, for research purposes, who's in the community. That's a hard
And
one.
also, I was trying signing in. It took a long time.
It does.
After membership, and so that's still going on.
Oh, well, that's really bad.
That's really bad. So.
It doesn't usually take that long. Yeah, but actually if you do use it, you know, it's not just limited to that nature park. I mean, if you see things around here, you can try uploading them. I mean, we're keeping the data separate because what comes from the nature park, that's where our actual project is, but it'd be really fun to see some of you put birds and stuff in. We're actually, because it's so difficult to take pictures of birds, we're putting in a dictionary of bird pictures. Yeah, because it's so difficult to take pictures of birds, we're just creating a dictionary of bird pictures from the nature park so that you can say, it's one of those, you know, and I saw it, and you can record it, but you don't have to kind of fuss with taking a picture of it. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. Lots of projects for you guys if you want to do projects.
How much do you trust the data from the citizen scientists? Do you have any standardized filtering system, or are you depend on your experts?
Yeah, basically it's mostly the experts. My projects are not, they're focused on the motivation. Andrea's is, so I'm actually talking about what other people do. But, and again, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology is really, I mean, they are light years ahead of the rest of us actually in this. And they do a combination of things. Through their visualizations, they can see, you know, a record of a bird that they wouldn't expect in this place at that time. And then they have a whole, I mean, birders are like I'm not a very good birder and I'm not an obsessive birder, but birders are very obsessive. And so there's whole gangs of them around. And, you know, you send a signal out that, oh, we saw, you know, lesser spotted something, and it was supposed to be here, and all these expert birders will go out and either verify it or not. So, you know, it's a combination of your experts and the technology tools. And the same thing happens with Encyclopedia of Life. When people submit directly to that, they have a certain, I mean, that is actually curated. I mean, it's a curated site. And so they have expert curators whose job it is to check out the stuff that people send in and make sure that it's correct data before it goes up in the Encyclopedia of Life. And they have ways of labeling it so you can tell if it's, you know, if it's being curated or if it hasn't yet been curated. Another really, really nice program that deals with this very nicely. Again, if you look this up, I think it's iSpot, and I think the address is at open.ac.uk. So this is one from the Open University in England, and they have a whole network of people who are scientists who help to curate data that comes in. So I have I'm from England, as you can maybe tell. Maybe you can't. No, maybe I sound American these days. But I often go out hiking in England, and I go with a friend, and we take pictures of things. If we can't identify them, we send them in, and within minutes we get responses from people. And then if the picture is good, it will often get curated and kept. If it's not good, it won't get kept. And so people are getting, and also the Encyclopedia of Life. I mean, they have, their aim when they started doing this was to have 1 million web pages one for what they thought at the time was every living species on Earth except for bacteria and viruses. And then scientists did some predictions, and they thought it was 3 million species, apart from bacteria and viruses. And now there are people that say it may be up to 10 or 30 million species, but the Encyclopedia of Life, and you can read about some of this stuff in Nature, I've forgotten the dates, but it was last year, there was an article. The Encyclopedia of Life has something like, I don't know, 1.3 or 4 million pages created and is partially curated. And they will go to places like Flickr to get better pictures, which, you know, if people label their pictures Creative Commons and they make them available to others, then they will use those. So for data scientists, you know, there's a whole lot of really interesting issues, because it's not just how good is the data, how do you search the data, how do you visualize the data, but there's also these issues of, you know, is it correctly curated? Have they given correct attribution? Are there going to be legal problems because somebody's going to bounce up and say, that was my picture and you haven't paid me for it, or you haven't acknowledged me? So there's a whole lot of really interesting issues that people are dealing with some of this stuff. So thank you for your questions. Any others?
Yes, so I'm very enthusiastic about virtual reality and possibilities for.
Sorry, you've got a very soft voice.
Yes.
Speak.
Yes.
Speak.
So about virtual reality, augmented reality.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about the future possibilities of those. I was actually reading a lot of those last weekend, watching videos. So, what do you think? Like, I was very excited when I saw the HoloLens, Oculus Rift. I read a lot of articles about those. So what kind of possibilities do they hold?
Well, I don't know much about the HoloLens. I've never actually tried it out, so I only know what is
I think
being
there's
talked
only part
about.
of them also.
Yeah, the Oculus Rift we know more about because, as I say, I have a student who's working with that. And actually, our university has a large amount of money for a new building from, I've forgotten his name. His surname is Eri, and he's one of the inventors of Oculus Rift. So they're giving our computer science college a whole new building. They're not giving one to the iSchool yet, but they're giving it to computer science. And the problem, I mean, they're claiming that the problem of feeling sick, you know, nausea, when you put the thing on, that they're trying to solve that problem. But our provost, I don't know, do you have provosts here? Yeah, our provost, very senior person, tried it out and she said she felt awful afterwards. So I don't know. But anyway, so they're trying to solve those problems. So I think some of the problems are, you know, still pretty fundamental for that. The HoloLens seems better from what I've seen of it, because you're not actually immersed and you don't lose your sense of balance, as far as I can tell, and you sort of, almost look through it, so you've got some real landmarks that can help you. Another place to look at some of this stuff is actually, you guys probably know about do you know about the World Wildlife Fund? The little panda? I am very passionate about the World Wildlife Fund. I've given my English students grow up with, they call it pocket money. We get little bits of money for doing chores in the home. I have been giving my pocket money, at least parts of it, to World Wildlife Fund since I was 12 years old, and I'm a lot older now, so I'm pretty involved with that group. And they're using technology in some very interesting ways. They're using the Google glasses for peripheral vision to be, so that they can look and they can be, you know, writing at some point, but keeping an eye on what's happening in the environment when they're out observing. There's also a lot of webcam work that's, of course, going on. Some of it's just, you know, continuous streaming of data. All kinds of different things like that. A lot of sensing devices are being left. So a lot of different things. I mean, the technology is really enabling people to do stuff that even a year ago, you know, we couldn't have done. I mean, I started doing some of this work seriously. I wrote the grant 5 years ago, and that first grant was an NSF grant, which is finished. The biologists were doing some of that stuff. I was one of the first people with Syracuse, actually, that got NSF funding in an iSchool in computer science for doing this kind of work. Now everybody's writing grants in that field, and that's just in 5 years, you know, so it's become pretty significant because everybody realizes that with all these different technologies, we can really do a lot more. And with people like you who can really, you know, who really embrace the technology, you just do it like second nature. You don't have to struggle with it like some of us do. I often say, I say to my students, you know, you guys, I know the methods. I can teach you the research methods and tell you how well you're doing your research methods. You can help me, you know, with some of the technology if I get stuck. And that's the way a lot of education, I think, happens now. And, you know, it works well. But I think, you know, there's a lot of opportunity, very creative stuff that people are doing. There's a lot of citizen science, and we should look to see what's happening in Korea.
Probably, really, thank you very much.
Yeah, I've gone on a bit.
Completely new area which we are not aware of, so we really appreciate. Hopefully, this is the great beginning of a Korea citizen science. Yeah, let's give a round of applause.